Good afternoon. On behalf of Engineers Australia, I'm delighted to welcome you to our Infrastructure Thought Leaders series, Accelerate Your Digital Transformation and Future-Proof Your Business, the Evolution of BIM and Digital Twin 3D GIS webinar. Firstly, Engineers Australia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that today's webinar is being hosted with Engineers Australia industry partner Nearmap. Nearmap is a market leader of cloud-based geospatial information services, ranked one of the 10 largest aerial survey companies in the world in annual data collection volume. Nearmap's page-2 camera sensors and imagery processing pipelines are the most advanced in the world, enabling them to regularly capture and update the truth on the ground with industry-disrupting efficiency. With offices in the US and Australia, Nearmap services a rapidly growing global base of over 10,000 customers, particularly government agencies and commercial enterprises for whom current, reliable ground truth data is essential to critical decision-making and operational workflows. I'd like to welcome our first presenters, Stephen Coyle and Stephen Shaw from Arcadis. With over 20 years working in the infrastructure engineering industry and 12 years utilising BIM-enabled platforms, Stephen Coyle's career has progressed to leading and managing teams using the latest technology to deliver projects. He works closely with clients to provide scope, educate and strategise to increase efficiency utilising digital technology. As the Regional Digital Engineering Lead for Arcadis, Stephen is responsible for the digital transformation for the Australian business, including the 100% BIM program centred around the digitisation, standardisation and automation of engineering aligning to business strategy. Stephen Shaw is a civil and structural technologist. He holds a qualification in civil engineering and is a chartered technologist with both Engineers Australia and Engineering New Zealand. With 29 years' experience in the engineering industry, Stephen has gained valuable experience working for clients, consultants and contractors in both Australia and overseas. He assists in the development and use of both digital processes and visualisation techniques in support of a variety of projects. Now, in a role with Arcadis, Stephen has utilised his skill set to develop visualisation workflows on all scale of projects and during all phases of the design cycle. This has led to increased communication and collaboration for all parties to greatly enhance the customer experience. Please welcome Stephen Coyle and Stephen Shaw.
Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are in Australia. Firstly, I want to take this opportunity to thank Engineers Australia and to Nearmap to be able to present today on accelerating digital transformation. I'm going to start talking a little bit around the journey that Arcadis has been on thus far and our coming voyage with our new strategy. I will then present I'm going to have a go at doing some live demonstrations, but then Steve Shaw is going to really drive it home and show what Steve Shaw is our visualisation lead and what we're actually doing to provide that data-centric solution to our clients through visualisations in working with ecosystem partners such as Nearmap. So for those of you who don't know anything about Arcadis, I'll just touch on this very briefly. So Arcadis are active in about 70 countries. For those of you who've been in the industry for a while in Australia, you realise that HIDA were acquired by Arcadis back in around 2014. And just recently we celebrated the first birthday of Arcadis Gen. Arcadis Gen is our business that provides digital products to clients, whereas Arcadis is more suited towards the digital solution. So what we're doing at the moment, we're bringing those two businesses together and providing the full life cycle approach. So you can see our business is essentially divided into three globally and also regionally into our buildings, urban development, infrastructure business, and our environment and water. And so, look, I'm going to touch very briefly on our new strategy, because I think this is really important just to see. It kind of paints a picture in terms of where we are from a digital transformation point of view and where that's going. So we are looking at globalising our strategy, and we're dividing it into three key areas. Those three areas are focus and scale, sustainability, and most of all we're going to talk about today is digital leadership. So first of all, focus and scale. So this is where we are taking a big global approach and aligning our business units globally, so we can capture the best skills, capabilities, experience, and execute them with our local clients for our local projects. The next is sustainability. Now, sustainability, it's the heart of everything we do. Yeah, it should be front of mind, and it will be the front of mind everything to do, and central to every conversation we have of our clients, current and future. And if you go back to the history of BIM, that's sustainability was the core for the start of BIM. And then the last is digital leadership. So digital leadership. So this is where digital leadership is critical for any business, and it's about developing new business models, challenging the norm, and engaging with ecosystems and other partners to develop innovative solutions to our clients. Our clients are looking for different solutions, and it's really important that we leverage everything that we have as a business to be able to provide that. And so what we see, our vision and what we want to be recognised is we look at that digital is all about our people. It's not about a tool, it's not about a process, it's all about our people. And we look at this into three key themes, and these three key things, and this is what we're going to be talking about today, is client experience. And what we say about client experience, allow clients, so through the design process, using that design data to be able to make process. So we don't have other visualization tasks going on. We don't have other data or other information being managed through the design process. We're using all the centralized data to make these decisions, to make them interactive, on-demand experiences. So that is critical for able to move quickly through the project lifecycle. The next thing is automation. Now, Arcadis firmly believes that our strategy is firmly around you need to digitize, to standardize, to automate. And so at the moment we are standardizing a lot of our processes. Yes, we do. We've been automating with our business for a long time, and actually we have someone responsible for our automation team here in Australia. So this is a very key focus for us. And I think the best thing about automation, it not only you're more efficient and reducing costs, but you're allowed to come up with different design scenarios to be able for the clients to make decisions. And then 100% BIM. So those of you who've seen my other presentations within Arcadis will probably realise that I'm responsible for a 100% BIM program, where we are looking to put everything within a BIM level 2. So common data environment, federated model, and a predefined process. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. So I'm able to give a bit of an update on where we are on that program as well. And so, as I mentioned, it's all about our people, and one thing that our business did globally was the Valeric Business School does a very good a digital transformation course, and basically they went to every single business, every single office in our global business, and took our team leads and really painted the picture on what digital transformation means as in the business, and didn't give them all the answers, but allowed them to go back and to work within their business units and work out what needed to happen. And the structure or the framework around the digital transformation is around the 4 digital realities. And this is something that is a key focus for us. It's still in our business, and it's all about customer experience, data, data analytics, anything data, creating ecosystems. As I said before, I don't think anyone has got the answers for everything. So it's creating those ecosystems, and then also digital platforms. And when I talk about digital platforms, I do talk about things like BIM. And so talking about BIM, so 100% BIM programs. I said this what I'm responsible for. And so at the moment, we measure our revenue of our projects, or BIM level 2 projects, compared to our revenue of the whole business. And currently, the Arcadis business is sitting about 70%. And so we're driving that hard to try and maximise that in the year of 2021, and then move that forward into what using the old scale of BIM level 3. And arguably, you could look at BIM level 3 is what is now coined the term of digital twin. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot around digital twins, but I think it's important to show that where Arcadis is looking at digital twins, and the experience we've had so far in digital twins is the fact that I don't think there is one solution for digital twin, and so the way we're having conversations with our clients on digital twins at the moment is these different levels. We're really empathising with our clients in terms of what's going to provide real value to you. What data do you have, or how is your data actually structured? Do you have a data structure? Do we need to do a scan to BIM first, or do you have a data schema that we can use? So we're having those type of conversations to find out what level digital twin is required. And as you can see around the horizontal on that slide, that it's not just specific to a particular industry. We see this being through through every type of industry. And so next is showing that data-centric design. And I'm going to go ahead and start showing some live demos. Before I do that, just want to show just a small snippet of what we're doing on Sydney Central. So Arcadis have the role as technical advisor to Transport for New South Wales on the Central Precinct renewal project. So my role in this project is a digital engineering lead, working really closely with our GIS lead here in Australia, who is Riddick Bora, and his team of Emily and Nayland. And what we're really doing here is we're really using BIM and GIS to enable stakeholder engagement, centralise and secure data, centralise user experience, and to easily navigate different design options quite easily. Now, unfortunately, I can't show a live demo of this because it is quite a confidential project, but I can tell you that we've set this up within a 2D, 3D environment where we are able to quickly consume BIM data, and we're now looking at how we can push other data through this platform. Next, I'll start presenting some live demonstrations. So following on from the Central Station sample, that's been developed from what we developed on the M12 concept design and EIS, where we worked together with Jacobs, and we piloted the use of the 3D GIS platform, and we're consuming data from things like Revit, OpenRoads, and 12D into this environment. So basically, just one thing to know is that this is the concept design phase. This is now well further developed into the detail design phase. So yeah, look, just bringing this data into an easy use platform, web-based platform, just to allow decisions to be quick decisions to be made in terms of bridge spans, in terms of the route selection of the motorway. So this is a very powerful tool that we developed. Putting all the environmental constraints and everything in here as well. Another platform that we've created was what we call 360 Project View, and through the pandemic, it was really important that we couldn't get to site, we couldn't actually access site, and this is a project working with Laing O'Rourke where a number of the TAP stations, the Transport Access Program, where we're looking at providing this immersive experience of doing site visits. Get to experience the site. Understand what the constraints are through construction, et cetera, and you can do this all the way from from your desktop. So I mean, the main genius behind this was Dimith, our absolute genius graduate, along with Leo in our Manila office, and now we're taking that with point cloud data and providing live updates. And then also within the BIM environment, this is an intersection upgrade within up in Brisbane, and so we can again just a very simple, secure web-based environment. You've got a little map here where you can actually locate you point where you want to locate yourself into the location, and it just allows people to be immersive within this environment. So So on that, I will now hand it over to Steve and Shaw to talk more about other visualizations and other ways that we can provide data-centric solutions to our clients.
Cool. Thank you very much, Steve, for that. I really want to focus the second part of this presentation more specifically towards visualizations and the digital deliverables and how that's changed over the recent past. As we're all aware, the pre-pandemic, we were very much face-to-face communications and engagement, and also used a lot of traditional deliverable methods, such as static images and renders and drawings, and some animated fly-throughs. One of the big positives that has came from the pandemic, from a perspective of visualizations, is it has forced a new directive in terms of communication due to the lockdown requirements. And this is now going to become the norm going forward. These technologies have been around post the pandemic as well. There was really a slow uptake for a number of reasons. But really this has reached out to more online communications and engagement and using newer electronic deliverable methods. And what we have found at Arcadis is that these newer methods have really helped enhance our customers' experience and really helped engage with communities specifically. The reason behind this is that we live in a three-dimensional world. So I don't like using the word average, but the average human person communicates better in a three-dimensional world as opposed to two-dimensional traditional engineering deliverables. So we're finding that from the community especially, they're able to relate to the design information and what we're trying to convey in these newer deliverable mechanisms as they used to from an old community engagement perspective. So really, Arcadis, with that in mind, we try to base our visualizations on reality as opposed to creating a false sense of the natural surrounds to what we're trying to propose. Now, what we do is when we're in an area of coverage that's available from Nearmaps 3D online portal, we'll use the terrain mesh models that they have available, and this forms the background to our visualization model. And we then supplement that natural environment with design information, and that design information come from a whole host of different applications and different authors tools. So we're able to bring in MX in civil design information. We're able to utilize Revit or Bentley type systems, and also third party, right through from SketchUp through to other bespoke type applications to produce content. We're also able to bring in photogrammetry models into these environments. And what we do is we then create what we call a visualization model, which you can see on the right hand side of this slide. Now, what that then does is it gives a real sense of placement, as I said earlier, for people who are not necessarily from the engineering community, and they can recognize exactly where they are in terms of location and then review that design and the impact it potentially has for them. Now, the model at this stage, and it's a standalone side model as opposed to being live streamed, which we can do as well, but there's a number of technical challenges with that. It is a static model, and the next phase is to then produce an animated model from this static model, which is a case of pushing it into the visualization package that Arcadis utilizes and then animating the actual scenario by placing vehicles, people, some climatic conditions like cloud and moving times of day, and animals and other things, which really then gives a sense of purpose to that visualization model. Now, with that in mind, we'll start to look at some use cases, and these are actual examples that have been used by Arcadis in the preceding 12 to 24 months, right up to today. Firstly, what I'm showing here is a static image. This is, again, very traditional type deliverable, but the difference being, instead of like putting this out and producing very bespoke solutions, what you see in front of you there is a key plan. Now, the actual aerial image on that key plan is derived from the visualization model. So those houses and commercial properties and the design are all three-dimensional. What this then does, it gives us the ability to do optioneering and compare one design compared to another. So in this instance here, the key plan is from a duck and dive design. This site also had an elevated structure as the first option. So we're looking at option B in the key plan. Now, what you actually see in the comparison on the side-by-side is the two variants from the same location. So that's from location A, which is roughly 1/3 in from the right-hand side. And it clearly then demonstrates from the back of that property owner's perspective what they would see depending on which solution is actually selected. Now, we can also do this anywhere within this environment, and it is really a simple process to produce these views. It's just really a right click once the settings are set up, then export and then bring it into a drawing environment. Now, the second set of photos that have just popped up was more to allay the fears of the commercial property owners to the north of this site, who were worried on visibility of their businesses for obvious reasons. And you can very quickly demonstrate to concerned groups what would actually be the outcome of choosing each of the options. So again, making community engagement and stakeholder communications a far simpler process. Now that's very much a traditional deliverable. Now if we move on from that, we can also produce various fly-through animations. Now, what we've got here on the left-hand side is an example of an expression of interest. So a very high-level animation, very straightforward to do, approximately about 1 to 2 days work. And it really sets the scene on what the intent is, utilising very limited data that is available. So the natural surround of this is pretty much flat. It doesn't have the 3D content that we can procure from Nearmap. But the design on the right is actually a tender design from the example we looked at on the static images. And you can clearly see it's very much three-dimensional, but the difference being is it's actually the design information that you're seeing in this environment. And content like hard landscaping is the actual design for the site, and it's embedded into the Nearmap terrain model. And you can very quickly demonstrate exactly where you are in that location. Now, if we move away from that into immersive and mixed reality, now this is something at the moment due to restrictions in all our workplaces that's kind of been put on a back burner. It's been developed, but because we're not doing face-to-face, it's very difficult to hold immersive sessions. But the animation that's playing at the moment is a live recording of a virtual reality session. It's been speeded up by a factor of 2 just to showcase exactly what you can do in here. And as you can see, it's very realistic. And what you can actually do is change the time of day and do solar studies and various other things, and also embed information at the back of the model. The small screen capture on the bottom left is from a HoloLens session and uses the models in a mixed reality sense. And that's actually out on the site. This is actually a screenshot that's been taken and can then be used to communicate design issues back to team members or clients. And what you can clearly see on that image is that the design for the pipework is not aligning with the actual holes through the walls. And obviously the benefit from that, from a client's perspective, is that design can be then rectified and actually fixed up in a virtual world before this actually gets to site and becomes a construction issue. Now, what I'd like to do is get everyone to experience a QR code. So if you've got an Android phone, if you could bring that out and you've got a QR reader, switch that on and then scan that QR code. If you've got an Apple phone, it's as simple as pointing your camera towards the QR code. What will happen is a link will appear, and if you follow that link, you should see an image similar to what's shown on the small phone on the right-hand side there. This example is a static 360 image taken from the visualization model. The animation side of it is switched off because obviously it's static, but you do have the ability to rotate 360 degrees and to zoom in and out using your 2 fingers using standard functionality of a phone. So I'll give you a quick second just to try that one. And now we'll progress and I'll show you the difference, because the beauty we actually use in QR codes is that you embed a link in the back of them. And that link can be to static images, it can be to, in this instance, a photogrammetry model, or you can do it to a cloud host, which Steve showed earlier in terms of the project tour. And this then gives the ability of people to open up these types of communication wherever they be. The only limiting factor is having the availability of having Wi-Fi. And QR codes can be used in a number of manners. It can be placed on a traditional drawing and linked to views. It can be put in an email. It can be done on a letter drop to community. So again, it really maximizes the ability to deliver these digital deliveries of design to the people that really need to see them and to understand them, again, in a fully three-dimensional, immersive type experience. Not only can we utilize some of these technologies, we now have the ability as well, from a client perspective or a user perspective, to do simulations. In this instance, on the left-hand side, we can put people into a driver mode, and you can actually set up using gaming type applications in hardware and let people actually drive the actual sites. So they can actually sit in basically a racing car type seat that it's used with standard Xbox or PlayStation and drive along the site and experience what that design will actually be in real life and see if there's any issues. Now, the beauty with that is you can actually start to review your design from a safety perspective. In a sheer user perspective, are things like sign positions adequate? Is there sun strike on signs? And that can all be eliminated. And also, as Steve showed earlier, we have the ability now to use cloud-based hubs to actually do what we call project tours as well. And that utilizes the 360-degree panoramic images that are placed into the basically visualization model and shared across the cloud. And again, that can be attached to a QR code, or it can be simply a link provided and gives people the ability to then start to, in a very controlled manner, review and see the impact of what has been proposed. So really, that's it from me at this stage, and I would like to pass back to Steve for some closing comments, and I would like to thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks for that awesome presentation, Steve. And I think just in closing, just four key messages that I think we want to just wrap up from today is, I think Steve alluded to it. We've got to keep moving and challenging. We'll never ever reach the end goal here, and I think it's important to realise that. But we've got to keep moving and keep challenging ourselves, keep on challenging our clients, keep on challenging our technology to ensure that we can achieve those innovations, those level of innovations that we want to achieve. One important part is, and it goes back to the 4 digital realities that I did talk about, we need to collaborate to innovate. You know, we need to be talking within industry. We need to be talking to ecosystem partners. We need to be talking to our clients. We need to talk to our competitors. You know, we work in environments where we are working with our competitors on a day-to-day basis. So we really need to collaborate to really push industry forward. We talked about making data available, data-centric design, and I think it's important to make that available to everyone, all our stakeholders, to ensure those decisions are being made. And as I said, those data-driven decisions, have one validated central source of truth that where decisions can be made quickly and efficiently. And on that, again, I want to thank NEMAP and also thank Engineers Australia, and I think we'll hand it back to Engineers Australia.
Thank you both for your insights. I'd now like to welcome our final presenter, Stuart Bull from Laing O'Rourke Construction. Stuart is a civil and structural engineer and building surveyor. He holds qualifications in architectural engineering, construction management and facility management, and has professional BIM accreditations with the Hong Kong Institute of BIM and Singapore Building and Construction Authority. With over 30 years in the engineering and architectural industry, Stuart previously worked for Arab, independent BIM consultants, and now Laing O'Rourke Construction, and has utilised digital processes on some of the world's largest and most iconic projects. Stuart provides delivery and strategic integration on the use and implementation of digital technology to owners, operators, contractors, consultants, and government groups wishing to further their understanding of digital engineering and data integration processes. Please welcome Stuart Bull.
Good morning. My name is Stuart Bull and I'm the Head of Operational Digital Engineering for Laing O'Rourke Construction. I'm looking forward to presenting to you my business presentation on 3D, BIM, GIS and digital twins. As an update, just for people who haven't seen a presentation that I've done before, Laing O'Rourke has long been a digitally delivered contractor. And I just want to give you a couple of minutes on our journey, particularly in Australia, to where we are now. So Laing O'Rourke started really understanding the opportunity in Australia around digital delivery and data management in 2015. We have been doing this as a business since 2003, 2004 in the UK, but in Australia we really found some opportunities more recently. So Project Q was a project, a mining project where we were looking at how we could set up a project really quickly and then actually use a code library approach to how we would codify the model and link to our operational systems. W2B, which is the Pacific Highway upgrade project, which we've recently finished, was the next evolution of what we learned on Project Q. The dotted line that you see there is where we really transitioned from being geometry based into a lot more integrated geometry and data. This was demonstrated on developing a temporary works app where we really integrated the models and all our temporary works approvals processes into one environment. Further to that, we started developing our more integrated quality dashboards, and then through projects, the MTM track renewals project in Victoria, we integrated even further through our P6 quality integration with live dashboard reporting. Further to that, the more we learned about these processes and understanding how to connect our internal systems, we came up with earthwork settlement monitoring systems through GIS and model-based technology, parametric optioneering, our training crane VR simulator application through the UK business, developing up the augmented reality and AI HSE strategies with Microsoft, digital progress completions, integration, more parametric integration through our CPRA projects, and the more recent ones of the Sydney Metro ISCA rating tool and the defining a digital estimation process, because it's not just around a quantity attached to a rate. There's a much bigger process behind that we've been developing up. So a bit of a journey there over the last number of years of the transition that we've been making from a kind of standalone process into a really connected, integrated process. So I want to talk briefly over the next 10 minutes or so around the New South Wales bushfire cleanup project. As you know, the bushfires that have ravaged all over Australia, but in particular New South Wales last year, led to an awful lot of devastation and damage. And the New South Wales government asked a number of contractors to tender for a role to clean up the various areas that have been devastated, and this meant clearing up contaminated areas, the areas where you had lots of asbestos and other contaminants, and then just help the local community rebuild and with a blank slate. So this was effectively a February to July project, an MC. This was actually extended one more month to make sure that we dealt with all the affected properties, which ranged up to 3,500 properties. So what we needed to do on this is, it was a really quick start. We had a couple of weeks really to come up with a platform that helped us define a GIS backbone to manage all of the things that we needed to manage. So as I previously mentioned, we learned a lot around setting up processes and projects fairly quickly on Project Q in 2015, then the W2B project in 2017. And we used all of those previous experiences of those two major projects to actually help us understand what we needed to do quickly on the bushfires clear up. So the things I want to talk about here around, you know, the processes, less so GIS as a platform, but around how we as a business tried to set this up as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So it's around project integration and successes. So, you know, we set the project up, not a system, not a data set or a report. So it's around the whole project. Understanding the required suitable systems to actually best deliver the outcome. You know, what we needed to do to require a cross-project data management structure and naming, and what we needed to do to have an efficient reporting process with a minimum of, you know, manual backbone messing around. So, you know, these things that you always want to do, you know, just try and remove that, and actually it's a process set up. It's also an important thing it's a discussion with the project team on how best to deliver the project. It's not what I think or the digital manager thinks or the GIS manager thinks, it's what the project thinks that best suits all participants in the project team. And then it's really learning to rely on the data with confidence, that everything is verified and understood. It's about your data, not what you feel. It's about the challenges that you can apply to that data. You know, when you think it's not right, you know, this is about constructive discussions around the data systems that you're building, and fixing it when exceptions happen, because what you understand at the beginning of the project is not always what you understand at the end. So, you know, it's around how do you quickly fix those exceptions without breaking the entire ecosystem, and be more efficient. You know, focus on the tasks that you need, you know, but don't do a copy and paste of information. You know, you really want to make sure that you have a structured architecture, a structured data set, and a structured understanding of what you're trying to deliver. So, you know, when you're setting up these major projects quickly, it's around a kickoff meeting with good communication. It's around really informing the team what is happening, what you expect them to do, what you as the you know, your digital engineering or GIS team will establish, and how long it take, plus the rules of engagement. And then really understanding what are the you know, the project team's, you know, pain points. Where would they feel that this process that is being set up is too hard or too complicated, or is it just they don't understand what you're trying to do? So it's really understanding what the team needs to do around how to use these platforms, not what you as a skilled digital professional are taking out of an understanding. You know, you are the, yeah, what you understand is not what other people understand. So the project own processes around, you know, your dashboards, your databases, et cetera, must all have a project owner. They can't be spread out where lots of people are finger pointing. You know, it must be robust with a good project standard and well-defined processes. It must be agile and you know, be able to change where necessary. And must move quick. You know, you can't take 3 days to update something. You know, it must be an almost instantaneous understanding of that change. These other items that are coming up are these things that really nobody really considers. You know, it must be you know, moving quickly. It must be it can't be too fragile. It can't be uncontrolled. It must be, you know, something that people understand. And doesn't cause lots of resource. So if it's fragile and uncontrolled, you need more resource. Whereas if it's robust and inert, then you actually can do things very quickly with a smaller team, because you're just pushing out a standardized data set approach to fixing problems that you may need to fix. And, you know, every time, and this is not just Langer O'Rourke, I'm assuming would make an assumption it's almost all teams, that every time the system does not adapt, just going back to fixing it with Excel is not the best process, because if you do that, then you're breaking up your database system and your common codification of your project. So the best people for the projects, you have your project leaders who sit across your systems. So you have a project lead or a project director, plus you have your system leads. But you need your full team, like your Swiss Army knife of people to take your project on the journey you need to go. So you need your IT infrastructure set up. You need your system ninjas or your system experts, and then you need your system owners. So without these, you don't have a robust process to actually answer the problems that could actually eventuate during the project establishment and delivery. And then you need to decide, do you want to procure a system that you install, you apply a license, turn on and get going, or do you want to configure an existing system and integrate into your existing systems? This is a question for every business. What is the best way? An off-the-shelf product you just turn on, or an existing connect or an existing system you have within your business that you want to configure and integrate? That is what's best fit for a business. Once you get all of these things set up, you actually have a wide range of opportunity of connecting your project reporting, your dashboards, your GIS backbone in real time. Now, with the bushfires project, this was set up within 10 to 14 days. And the reason for that is that we had a very short duration of this project, but we had an almost immediate need to actually understand the number of properties, where the properties were, the local industry participation, and how we could actually get local companies to bid for packages of work to actually assist them getting back on their feet as well in the local communities. But also understand these historical learnings and potentially the new enhancements. What you did 2 or 3 years ago is great. Take that and take it on a journey, because whatever you have then, pretty sure you can use now, but with the new systems and new experiences, you can actually enhance it quite a lot. So if you look at that graph that we have there, when we set up Project Q in 2015, the whole process took us close to 12 months. When we set up W2B, it took us 6 months. But with bushfires, we did this in a significantly shorter period of time. And you almost want to get down to it's a turn on and operate process, rather than having any time to evolve a backbone setup as well. And it's around using those past platforms, our dashboards and apps that we developed on W2B, our GIS scripts and any custom integrations that we're developing now on bushfires will go to the next project. But also understand the reusable content that's out there in the market. Your curated GIS layers, your historical GIS layers, government databases, and any other information that you can find will all form your backbone architecture. So it's around configuring your systems to get best outcome, and it's about best outcome for project, not best outcome for individual or technical expert. Why? You want to focus on the people and the time on the knowledge task. You want people to have understanding of the value of the data, but not want to question it all the time. It's got to be efficient, and it's also got to be transparent. So just because I say something doesn't necessarily mean it's right. The whole team must understand it's right, and that's the transparency part. The enablers are around, leadership support from the top down, understanding that everyone is in this together, and really sit at the top table with your leaders, explain the processes you're building for the project, and make sure that they're fully engaged in that process. You need a dedicated team. You can't have people that just pop in and out. This needs to be a 24/7, so to speak, dedicated team. and it needs to be an agile and reactive environment that you're building your platform upon, or your systems across. And also it needs to be reproducible, you know, whether that's a real word or not. You know, we learned a lot from our previous projects, and I think that learning and understanding the history behind your projects is really, really important, because if you do, it becomes cheaper, faster, and easier to push out at scale, and also the reusable content. So I think these are the really important things that we evolved through the W2B project, the bushfires project. It's really, really important that these things are understood. But once you have all of those kind of backbone things, you can actually start looking at how you can even push out other opportunities with this. So we have a tool called LaFinder. It's an internally developed tool, and it allows you to really take your site photos and push them to maps through GIS interfaces, and allow your teams out on site very quickly to not only know where a photo was taken, but also when the photo was taken, who it was taken by potentially, and then scroll through the list of photos that are actually in the project folder out in the field, and understand what you've actually got. These can work on 2D, regular photos. It can also work on 360 panos. So this has been a really interesting development over a number of years that we've run across our projects. And on W2B, for example, we've got 250,000 site photos in here that have all been catalogued. So you know exactly what these are, what they are, who took them, and actually supports where you have a quality discussion or an assurance piece that you need to run through. Also, you can actually start looking at how you can connect your GIS and project controls platforms together. You know, what you can see here is a Power BI dashboard that's actually connected directly through to GIS web maps, and this actually helps us understand, how our packages are being delivered, particularly in logistics, where we need to get materials to. And also where you've got potential storage or laydown areas. These have been really useful for the team to understand on a day-by-day basis exactly where our projects are, and we're developing up some pretty comprehensive GIS project control systems that will basically be a desktop dashboard for the whole project. We're also looking at how even you could use these for things like community stakeholder engagement, with heat maps. So literally from the stakeholder comments box, which is basically a word map, you could pretty much hover over any one of those words, and it would give you a different representation of the heat map on the right hand side. And these, would change depending on what you were really trying to understand, the sentiment of the local community or the significance of the comments. This is particularly what we're showing here. So again, another very interesting view of how GIS, project controls and visual reporting is very, very useful and very, very easy to understand large data sets of information that would be traditionally very hard to understand from a project leadership perspective. I now want to talk briefly around the journey to a digitally operational asset. I'm not a great fan of the term digital twin, because a lot of it is confused. There's no real understanding in the industry of what the digital twin is. A lot of it's represented as traditionally what we have been doing for a long, long time, a 3D model that has inherent data within it, or data that you can connect to an external platform, 3D point clouds, etc., etc., etc. So, I'm going to give you an overview of where Laing O'Rourke are going with this, not so much the digital twin, which I see is more of a post-construction operational asset for clients, but I'll tell you where show where we're going on some of this journey from our internal direction as an asset that we deliver for the end of our project. So, we talk a lot about smart, buildings, smart infrastructure, smart cities, digital twins, the next level of smart, but very rarely do we talk about smart planning and setup. And from the previous slides around the GIS, you can see we really are focusing on how do you set things up in understanding the whole of project delivery, not just the functional outcomes of packages or disciplines or phases, but the whole project from beginning to end. So, what is a digital twin in reality? This is a snapshot of the original CBD Metro from 2009. This is a long time ago, but it's a city model. There's a lot of smarts behind this. It had all of the existing condition assets, in-ground utilities surveyed, the existing tunnels, the future tunnels for the then CBD Metro. But even the things like the basements, every basement along the route of the original CBD Metro was surveyed. So we have a big data set of existing survey information throughout the CBD that would let you understand exactly where those basement footprints actually sit, levels, extents of walls, extents of ownership of those lots of those particular buildings. Is that a digital twin? This is something that was already being developed in 2009. So understanding about what a digital twin is or could be is something that the industry really needs to sit down and define properly as a schema. And then you've got digital twins for manufacture, a digital twin model for data. Both of these images here are representations of exactly the same thing. One is a geometrical model for manufacture, industrial design. The other one is a data model. They're both representative of a digital twin. One could be just purely a data model as opposed to any geometry behind it. And that's where you need to understand, if you want a digital twin or a digital asset to be understood, shouldn't be looking at how, system-based data models could be reproduced as quickly as looking at a specification, really pressing a button and saying, right, this is an entire network diagram of your facility or your asset. You don't need to see the geometry, you just need to see the systematic build up of that asset as a network diagram. And then the future of where some industries are going, the mining industry wanting to build the mine of the future, defense looking at the digital shipyard. All of these things are being documented in various ways, but a lot of it is still not necessarily understood how best to deliver it, how best to procure it, skills in the industry needed to actually make this a reality. So there's a lot of specialists talking around digital twins and requirements, but very few people outside of the digital community really understand what it is and the value ultimately that it could become. It sounds like a good idea, but where's the evidence of that, and exactly where is the national schema to actually agree a philosophy around a digital asset? So from a Laing O'Rourke perspective, we really look as early as possible to start delivering the backbone geometric and data model. Geometry itself can be data, but we're talking about geometry that also has a contained inherent data set behind it that's useful to how Laing O'Rourke are actually connecting our systems together. So through the design and construction phase, we work hard with our design partners as well as our supply chain and subcontractors to actually define the geometrical and data digital asset, then how that runs through manufacture and is a representation of that digital model, how you install and test it and represent the performance-based evidence of the design. And then the verification, the final verification, how you capture that with point clouds or other digital tools and technologies to bring that back and verify not only the installation, but But again, some of that data as well and the system architectures behind it. But do you actually need to recreate a point cloud into a geometrical 3D model? I would say that in the future, point clouds themselves will become way more intelligent than just, colored dots that are representative of things that it can touch and feel effectively. Whatever it can scan picks up. But this is an example of where we have, partially an existing conditions 3D model, as in geometry. We've got a point cloud interface of lots of other areas of the building that would be, very time consuming to model and are not necessarily needed. And then you've got all of the bits that are solid colored geometry, which are either new elements or interfaces with existing elements that we are trying to describe to our client or our subcontractors or our stakeholders exactly where those change interfaces are going to happen. And the example that I've got here is that we modeled up a number of the existing walls, but then highlighted where new elements were going to be inserted through those existing walls. So all the green elements were new elements that were being altered from the existing conditions. So very quickly you could understand those new areas and get your client to understand and stakeholders and subcontractors exactly where their works were going to be. And then the ongoing discussion about what to model or not to model. When you look at that image on the left-hand side there, around an asset, a component of an asset, which is in this case an escalator. So you've got your facility, which is the entire station, and you've got a primary functional unit of the station, which is an escalator. And then you've got the subsets of the escalator, which is the motor, the handrail, and the treads. All of these things you don't necessarily need to model. You need to make a definition of the escalator space, but then you actually could take all of that other information and build that into basically a data set. And your data set is then managed by a platform. And that platform could be anything in your business as long as it's connected together. So from a Langer Hawke perspective, we have a data warehouse, we have our commercial and doc control systems, and we have repositories for approval and assurance that then can move any of that information into an operational asset. But if you take those two boxes there, you've got a digital model that is basically your GIS, your 3D models and your drawings. But then everything else that you have there is basically data. And that data is re-representing a very quick method of creating your O&Ms, all your functional asset data, health and safety records, maintenance regimes, and all your test certificates, which are part of a contractor's obligation to demonstrate during the approval and assurance process prior to practical completion. So it's really understanding what is the best way of developing up your asset. Is it to model everything inherently, or is it about using your model as a repository to connect to many, many other things and then come up with a platform that manages the whole environment together? If you want to call that a common data environment, you can call that a common data environment. But what is that inherent connected system that you actually want to report, assure and approve? If we just look quickly, one of the platforms that we're using a lot right now, Revisto. And we're seeing there's huge opportunities for this platform beyond what most organisations I think would traditionally use it for, which is the design phase, comment tracking. We're actually using it a lot in our EOI pre-bids and bid uses, particularly for interactives. We clearly used it in our design phases. We're using it a lot in delivery phases. How could you use it up to be a digital work pack creator? How we're using it for handover and all of our red line markups, comment tracking, approvals, and then how can you use that same data set to across your validation and verification as built models, your point cloud overlays, your closeout comments to your subcontractor works, etc., etc. So we're finding this a really good tool that a lot of our design managers, our engineers, our leaders can actually interact with a lot easier than other model approaches. So with some training and some support, we have a lot of our teams now delivering traditionally what a digital engineer in a model-based approach would be doing. And that's great, because if you've got a tool that's easy enough for everyone to use, then it's going to take the digital engineer into a place where they can actually do more valuable next step development of processes. So in closing, a connected architecture enhances, the ability for remote working, both the fact that post-COVID would change the way we work, but also how we can actually use what we've learned from these last 18 months into, pushing this information out to our sites. You might be working in remote locations, such as a mining site, but all of this will help you and your teams develop up a more robust, connected, usable system architecture. Look at internal development opportunities. Is it always the right thing to buy a new product, or is it better to actually look at the products you have and inherently develop up your own internal processes through APIs? That could mean you have a development team that sits within your IT group, but these are important discussions as a business you need to look at. Challenge yourselves around, is this model data integration needed, a fit for purpose outcome? It might be looking great from a visual perspective, but still doesn't answer the question of fit for purpose delivery, be it design, construction, assurance. Understand around, does it still give you quantification, your sequencing, your change management, your reporting in real time, and evidence and evidencing of all of that data? Because if it's still just pots of unverified, informed data, then it's still no more valuable than it was in an Excel spreadsheet. Remove your fragmented softwares and processes. As I said before, another new product is not the solution. It may not be the solution, it may be the solution, but in most cases it's not. And if you want to better exploit your own internal processes, understand how you can connect them. No platform in the market is there that would solve everyone's problem as a one-stop shop. And really define your internal data, IT, digital engineering transformation strategy as a single integrated, connected solution, and then educate your business progressively. This isn't going to happen in 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. Langer Walker on a business on a transformation agenda until 2025, and this was started in late 2018. So we as a business globally have set an agenda, and I think understanding how long that will take with progressive milestone demonstrations is a really important way of understanding where you're going. And these things could evolve and change as you go along and understand where you actually are on that journey. But importantly, let's just be innovative and have a bit of fun on the way. And I saw this on LinkedIn yesterday, and it's around the paper plane maker that a Lego enthusiast had developed. And I just thought this was great. This is engineering. This is systems. It's understanding a product being a paper plane. But this is really fun stuff that as an inquisitive group of people, as we are in the design and construction industry, we need to understand that it is all about having fun and understand how you can actually evolve your thinking and your processes. So I'll let this play out for another 30 seconds or more, but I hope you enjoy the presentation. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Thank you for that great presentation, Stuart. I love that, innovative and have fun along the way. Isn't that what it's all about, or it should be about? Hey, it's now your turn to get involved, our audience. Our speakers will now come together to take questions. So if you'd like to submit a question, just drop it into the chat box. If you can say your name and where you're watching from, that would be great. Just to let you know, we also have representation from NearMap here, so if you've got a specific question for them, there's people here who can answer that. We did ask for some questions on registration, so thank you to everybody who submitted. I'd like to start with a question from Amandeep, who's watching from Asia, and it's directed to Stephen Coyle. And a question is, how geospatial data will help us in the construction business? Very big question. Stephen, your thoughts?
I think that is a great question. I think from what we've seen is with the advancements that we've seen lately within GIS, using that as a way to combine all our different data sets into a central location, and then creating a web-based portal that allows multiple people, stakeholders to be involved, is the way that it's really helping the construction industry. And what that's doing, it's allowing an easy user interface and allow people to be making decisions earlier, to have quicker access to data. So that's the way what we're seeing is that GIS is allowing the collection of other data sets.
Thank you. Thanks for that. We've had a great question from Cho, who's based in New South Wales, and it's directed to Stephen Shaw and Stuart. And Cho is asking, how would you identify whether a source of data is the right kind? And how would you deal with an inaccurate data source and the potential conflict it may incur? Maybe we'll start with you, Stephen Shaw.
Thanks for that question. I think really the premises of the data is the lifeblood of everything we do. And to be able to identify whether it's correct or incorrect is something that has to start by understanding what we're actually trying to achieve with that data set first. There's a saying that goes around that we're very data rich, but information poor. So I think the communications around what we're trying to achieve, how we're trying to achieve it is vital first before we start to try and verify the data, whether it's suitable for that or not. Now, data in itself is a whole topic that could probably take up an entire day of discussion. And I think the capture, the validating, the management, and then the analytics that go behind it are critical for the industry going forward. So really, to sum that up, it's understand what you're trying to achieve, and then look at the data you've got and see if it's appropriate, and if not, go back to the host and recapture or try and get a more appropriate data source. I'll pass it on to Stuart now for his thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, I would agree. I think the whole validation is really important, and really how you establish what is valid through certification, agreement on the basis of when the data was captured, how you need to use it. Some data can be really critical, which means you need to spend more time validating it. Other data is less critical, but which means you could do an iterative approval process. If you take into account survey, you should be receiving a survey model, be it a point cloud or traditional survey with a survey certificate that gives you the calibration of the equipment, when it was registered, the name of the surveyor, to the tolerance level. All of these things are then captured up within that bit of verification certification. So it's a big topic, as Stephen mentioned, but I think there needs to be some greater level of data approval and data validation from the beginning of the project, and it could be progressive types assurance, but I think there needs to be a bit more work done, or a lot more work done on validation of data for use.
Thanks, Stuart. Obviously, technology that's moving so quickly, and Darwin, who's based in Queensland, is directing a question to Stevens today. And the question is, will there ever be a time in the near future where reliable and consistent GIS could completely remove the need for site visits? And Darwin's put that in the context of constraint timeframes and access limitations. And maybe Stephen Coyle, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, sure. So, so the platform that we created, the 360 project view, I think that was, yeah, that was born out of one of our graduates, Dimith, that I mentioned. That understanding what the issue was, it was primed through COVID. How can we understand all the hazards, constraints? How can we get our project team engaged? How we get remote teams engaged? So that's to develop a simple web page, a web-based site visit was essentially taking a number of 360 photos and incorporate into a platform to be able to have people to quickly from their desktop being able to have to be engaged within the site. Now we're looking at taking that further, because if you think about other things you do on site visits, which is taking measurements, so incorporating point cloud data, what Stuart was talking about that earlier. Incorporating LiDAR, point cloud, and using that as a way to take measurement, embedding that, and then also use it almost, embedding design information there as well. So incorporating your 3D BIM into that environment as well. So you can do measurements and then also looking at construction sequencing. So to me, this has changed. Well, not to me, but for Arcadis, it's actually changed the way that we access our sites now, that we can engage more people and understand those site constraints and other hazards and factors, safety issues through this simple platform. So to me, it's only going to scale. Did you want anything to add there, Mr. Shaw?
Yes, I would certainly like to add to that. From a visualization perspective, we certainly very rarely attend site anymore. I can't actually remember the last 10 years when I've been on a site. The reason being the availability of services such as Nearmap, where we can access three-dimensional terrain models or surface models or reality meshes and have a reasonable level of accuracy to bring that in, really navigates that to the point where we don't need to attend site. It's actual reality that's captured. So we can then embed our designs into those areas and have a level of confidence that what we're actually seeing is accurate. So I think we're already at a phase with technology where we can actually deliver this and deliver it in the mechanisms that was being shown in the presentations. Really, the only thing holding it back at the moment is the desire to move in this direction. And it's something that is changing. So bring it on, I say. Thank you.
Bring it on. Thank you. We've had a great question about the application, and maybe Stephen Shaw, if you want to answer this one. It's coming from Jeff, and Jeff is asking, have you thought of using the road visualization to assist in carrying out road safety audits at the concept or preliminary design phase? Stephen,
thanks for that question. Currently, we've not used it in that mechanism, but there's certainly nothing stopping us. Once you've created the actual visualization model, and as I showed on my presentation, that can be done at very early phases. There's nothing to stop us starting to look at all different mechanisms of design process. So yes, I can certainly see a future where safety and design and various other studies will be done in a virtual world, and then it'll be validated and taken to site. So yes, that's an excellent question. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'll add something to that. I think the ability of using these models and GIS and other applications in site safety reviews, signal sighting. I know we've used these technologies for virtual signal sighting, to validate design prior to moving out onto site, and particularly across rail possessions, is becoming more easily used, particularly for our engineers. It's more about industry clients and stakeholder groups that have been traditionally given a set of drawings or a set of photos, how they're willing to change some of their views on using this technology. And removing people from quite dangerous situations. You shouldn't be putting anyone in a dangerous situation unless they really have to be there, and construction sites and rail corridors and roads are dangerous situations. So I think where we can use this technology and visualization to help us remove people from those environments is definitely something to be considered.
Thanks, Stuart. And don't go anywhere, because we've had a few questions around resources, and there's one in particular from Bronte, and Bronte's based in Queensland, directed to Stuart and Stephen Coyle. And Bronte's asking, what type of resources do you need on a team to implement technologies like these? Great question, Bronte.
I'll jump in there first. Look, I think it's anyone who's really interested and open-minded to doing things differently. You've got to be really inquisitive. You don't need to be technologically applied at the beginning. I think it's a journey. Everyone is about it. All of this is about learning. Nobody knows everything. It's about picking up new tools, finding the thing that most interests you, and challenging yourself. And then how do you roll that out as an opportunity to people around you? It's a lot about collaboration. It's a lot about communication. But there's no particular type of person that you would ultimately go for. Clearly, if you can get into universities and partner with universities and STEM programs and get people interested at a very, very early age, it makes it easier to get that next generation of technology-enabled people into your business, and they will take you on the journey. Whereas the past, it's a lot about people learning as they go and becoming interested. The younger generation now are technologically advanced and technologically enabled. So we should be taking those next generations on the journey.
Thanks, Stuart. Stephen Coyle, do you want to add to that?
Look, not much to add. I completely agree with Stuart. I think, a couple of the platforms that we have created in Arcadis, these have come from our graduates and others. And I think it's just clearly, being able to think a little bit differently. Stuart mentioned, be able to collaborate. As I mentioned, I think the best way to innovate is to collaborate. We don't have the answers together, so I think that's really, really, really important. I think being able to articulate to be able basically to find out what the problem is and empathize if the client has an issue, or you're trying to work out what solution you're trying to provide. I find people always try to use technology as a solution, but you need to really define what the problem is first and put a process around that, and then have a look at the technology landscape. As we've said today, the three of us said today, is changing. The technology landscape is changing somewhat. So, it's really important that we do clearly define the issue, and we do look around in terms of the technology landscape and see what is the best innovative solution.
And Stephen, maybe just hang in there. We've had a question from Carlos. It's quite a broad question, but I think it's one that you can maybe flesh out a little bit and interpret as you feel. But Carlos is asking, is there a clear strategy to maintain the databases by owners in your experience, according to your experience?
Sorry, so maintaining databases.
Is there a strategy you've seen that works when maintaining databases? Maybe a best practice or something you think works well.
I think what possibly could work. Well, what could work well. So maintaining databases, it's really important how they're structured, because once we know how they're structured, is how they're going to be used. And it's one thing that we found through working with our clients, that they may have, we've got all this information of all of our assets. Here it is here, go for it. However, not knowing not knowing how they want to use that data to how they want to manage their asset is becoming a bit of an issue. So we've actually had to go back a step and say, I think Stuart alluded to it, is developing that essential data schema. Once we develop that data schema, then that becomes a better way to help manage the databases. So that's the way that only managing the data that is really important. I think is another issue as well. Clients have and even internally as well, we have a heap of data that we don't actually use. So we need to really clean the data and make sure we have the right data that's available for that particular asset or for its use.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. And I'd like to just introduce that we have Judy Chang, who is a geospatial engineer at Nearmap, and she's joined us in the speaking panel for the Q&A. And Judy, we have a question for you. And it's coming from Troy, and Troy's asking, will you provide the environment to place pre-drawn building footprint designs into your web page based aerial images? Judy.
Thank you, Troy, for the question. We do currently have the capability for our users to bring in their pre-drawn files if the file is in the KML format. And in Nearmap, we do see ourselves as a content provider. So whether it's our 2D or 3D content, we do integrate quite seamlessly with a variety of GIS spatial software and also a lot of the CAD platform as well. So we do encourage our users to take our 2D or 3D content out to your own platform to use to overlay your other design files. And it can be via APIs or downloaded offline files.
Thanks, Judy. We've had a question, a great question from Debbie, who's in Victoria, and she's directed this to Stuart and to Stephen Coyle. And Debbie is asking, what role do you see modular product manufacturers will play in digital transformation for the construction sector? Stuart.
Yeah, great. That's a great question. The opportunity of modular DFMA prefabrication. There's huge opportunity in Australia. Laing O'Rourke in the UK are built on DFMA and modular processes that we've been delivering since the early 2000s. I think supply chain partners are essential. If you're not a vertically integrated construction company, then you have to rely on a better way of design to integrate a DFMA modular process. So it's not all down at the suppliers end. It's around how designers reimagine the design more quickly, more efficiently in a modular based approach with the contractor and supply chain partners and suppliers to actually support that move forward, and then really look at the best areas to deliver this vision in. Certainly mining and resources, modular and prefabrication is commonplace, but you could see there's a huge opportunity for modular station buildings. The TAP projects, for example, you could almost do in a modular approach through lift cores, stairs, canopies, cross rail corridor bridges. So all of those could be modular delivered. So it's around greater integration with your supply chain, trying to bring them in earlier into the process, D&C subcontractor type opportunities, rather than just wait till you get to 100% design where everything is almost unchangeable. So there is a huge opportunity. I think the industry just needs to work together and move that discussion forward more quickly, certainly with our clients, because there is a program implication of how you do this. How you set your project up across the program will impinge on how you could do this modular type delivery.
Thanks, Stuart. Stephen, Coyle, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so look, I think I'm not going to repeat anything that Stu talked about, because I completely 100% agree with him. And again, getting the supply chain involved at the right time earlier, trying to remove any double up of effort that is happening through that design process, or that design process or manufacturing process is really important. And I think so. Stu's really covered it well from the construction side. From the design and engineering side, I think linking modular type of construction, through the design phase, this opens up avenues such as computational design and generative design. So this is when we can really understand the supply chain, understand these modular or the manufacturing industry, and then actually look at how can we more efficiently come up with, and I mentioned it in my presentation, being able to work with generative and parametric design, being able to come up with more design scenarios, being able to do, have a better design, more effective design, reduce costs, increase construction speed, etc. So from the design engineering side, that's really that's where we need to engage earlier with the supply chain around the generative and computational design.
Thanks for that. There's a question that's come in that's a great question, because it's something at Engineers Australia we do hear a lot, and I'll just sort of throw it out to everyone. But the question's coming from Jay, and Jay says it would be useful to standardise the term digital twin. There's a lot of different perspectives as to what one is. And maybe Stephen Shaw, why do you think that is?
I think like what Stuart was alluding to earlier in his presentation, that there's so many different factors to a twin. Is it data driven? Is it geometry driven? And to a lot of different organizations and companies, what they're trying to achieve is very different to the other people in the industry. So I think it is something in terms of language as a whole in digital engineering. We need to get a lot more streamlined and a lot more commonality in. And really, from my perspective, I would totally agree that there is a lot of confusion around not only the terms digital twin, but some of the other terminology that's used. I'll pass it back to Stuart and Steve Coyle.
Yeah, if I can, I'll jump in there. I think I was just talking about this yesterday to a government group actually, that it would be good for even within states to have a schema definition around their interpretation of a digital twin for their own use, because there's an awful lot of noise in the marketplace right now around this term and what it could be. We certainly don't want the opportunity of the digital twin or the digitally enabled asset or whatever you ultimately call it to just really be another step change of 3D. It's way more than that, way more important than that. So it's really a big discussion point. I feel maybe even Building Smart should be looking at, from a national perspective, international perspective, defining a digital twin schema, working with governments and what have you to actually get that at least as an 80% schema for the market to really understand and drive forward.
Thanks, Stuart. And we are getting to the close, but I do have a question that's come in from Bill, and then we'll have one more after that, asking, Laing O'Rourke, Codis, do you have any predictive digital twin project examples that have been developed to completion? Maybe Stuart, we'll start with you.
Oh yeah, that's. I would say no, we don't. We as a constructor are delivering an operationally ready asset. In some cases we are in a collaborative design environment with our design partners. Sometimes we're a construct-only contractor, which means we inherit a lot of stuff and we just have to deliver it on tight timeframes. The closest we've come, we've done some great work down at Brisbane Airport for the International Terminal Expansion Project, Sydney Opera House, Jones Sutherland Theatre upgrade project, and over in the UK where the Francis Crick Cancer Research Centre delivered some 4.5 years ago now. We're on the right journey, but we're not the complete article. So it's a journey we are still on with everyone else, but I think there again needs to be a general definition agreement around contractually what you are delivering for digital twin and how everyone is engaged to deliver that.
Stephen Coyle, a response from Arcadis?
Yeah, so I think, so to answer the question, I think, and just continue on with what Stu just mentioned then, I think, to me, predictive, this is when you're getting more around the digital, the data analytics. And I know within Arcadis, we have worked with a number of clients, one more recently in the resource sector, where they were having issue with their with a few of their pumps on a site. So we actually being able to get a lot of the sensor data, we're able to scrape it, and we'll be able to we're able to find out where the points of failure were. So I wouldn't call that a digital twin solution. I would be calling that more of a data analytic solution using our data analytic team that's led by Jason Grandin here. So and his merry team. So again, I think exactly what Stu said, that there's really understanding the differences between what you want to that what I showed in my presentation, the scale. I think there's not one digital twin solution. I think it's scalable, but then when you start talking about predictive, this is when you're bringing in the data analytics and looking from that perspective. So yes, we have done work around prescriptive, but it's been more around a data analytics rather than the digital twin.
Thank you for that. And we will have to finish on this last question. And I'm just trying to wrap a few questions up together, because we have had questions as to how do mechanical engineers get involved in this development. We've also had questions about our university students, how do they get involved? So if we sort of bundle all that up, what do you think are the most important things that people should be learning about this, particularly our young engineers? To help them as they progress in their career. And I might just start, if we could just quickly go around, but I might just start with Judy from Nearmap. Thank you.
To be very honest, I don't have a lot of feedback to give on that, so I'll probably leave it to the other pros. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Stuart.
Look, I think everyone gets caught up in technology, and technology is fine, but I think it's understand process, understand whole of project delivery or whole of life delivery. The things that develop into a project. Understand what clients and stakeholders want. It's a lot, again, back in that listening, collaboration, cooperation. Research, but it's a lot more about process. So, really understand and investigate the processes and the systems as opposed to just the products. That would be my advice.
Thanks, Stuart. Stephen Shaw, do you want to just comment on that briefly?
Yes, what I would say is be inquisitive, challenge the norm. There's a lot of very good systems in place, but they've been around a long time, and always look for continual improvement. I think engineering is inherently very risk adverse due to the nature of the industry, but for some of the things that we're looking at now, we have to be willing to take on a bit of risk in terms of having a go, and don't be scared of failure. As long as you learn from that and you can progress, you'll eventually get there, and be open and communicate as much as you can.
Thanks. And Stephen Coyle.
So yeah, look, I continuing on from what Stu and Steve were saying. Look, the reason why I mentioned the 4 digital realities, because to me, when we went through the Valeric digital transformation course within our business, everything just seemed to make sense to me, and so understanding. So yeah, as Stu said, everyone tries to think it's about technology, and it is about the process. It is about it being inquisitive, but understanding that it's all about data. It's all about platforms. It's all about creating ecosystem, but more importantly, it's all about the customer experience. What journey is the customer on as well? So, and that's where we need to develop the empathy towards, what solution we're trying to provide. Where are they on their journey? And I think that's something that seems to be missing from a lot of conversations. So I think that's just understanding that we need to, and I mentioned before, we need to collaborate, innovate. That's something that it's a big driver for here in Arcadis.
Thank you so much. And unfortunately, that is all the time we have today. So please join me again in thanking Stephen Coyle, Stephen Shaw, Stuart Bull and Judy Chang for their contributions and excellent presentations. I'd also like to once again thank Nearmap, Engineers Australia's valued industry partner, for making today's webinar possible. As always, we appreciate your feedback on the program today, helps us plan for future sessions and knowing what you'd like to hear more about. So if you could please complete a short feedback form, which is linked in the description box. Thank you again for joining us today, and we're looking forward to seeing you at our next Thought Leaders webinar. Thank you and good afternoon.